Hello, and welcome to Single Moms Rising, which is an IG Live series I started a couple months ago. I think it was back in May when I first started this series, in where I basically spotlight a single mom and her journey and her life lessons in becoming a single mom. And so tonight I'm going to be featuring Jamila. And Jamila, I met her online through Instagram, and she's attended a couple of my self-love circles. So I'm excited for her to come on here and for her to share her story with us this evening. So just give me a moment as I get Jamila to join the live with me this evening. And if you are tuning into this live, I'd love to hear where you're tuning in from in the world. And if you're watching the recording, you could feel free to also just let me know where you are tuning in from. All right, so let me get Jamila on here. I know she's there. Hello.
Hi.
Good evening. How are you?
I'm good.
I love your earrings. They're such like a statement piece.
Thank you.
Cute.
Thank you so much.
All right. Well, I'm so happy for you to come on here with me this evening and to share your single mom story, which I know is not all that easy. But I know that in sharing, our stories, it helps to really help other single moms who are in a similar situation realize they're not alone, and we can find support and inspiration and community amongst each other. So I really honor you for taking the time to come on here and being brave enough to share your story with me this evening.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So before I start, I just want to say that I'm supervising my baby. So if I'm in and out or if I'm looking away, I'm just paying attention to her.
Yeah, sure, no problem. That's the life of being a single mom, right? We got to multitask. We got to make sure.
Right.
All right. So I'd love for you just to start by introducing yourself a little bit, where you're from, what you do, just so that, we get to know you a little bit more before we jump into your story.
Okay, so thank you so much, Melissa, for having me. That's first and foremost. So I'm Jamila, and I'm from Jamaica, and I have a 17-month-old, and I work full-time. I work from home some of the times, and I'm an entertainment, extraordinaire, or an entertainment executive, where I do administration, project management, marketing, and all the entertainment works.
Nice. So your daughter, she's almost a year and a half.
She's almost 2.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Oh yeah. The number is sometimes kind of.
Yeah. So she's in that toddler phase. I'm sure she's like exploring a lot, getting into a lot of, mess.
Yeah. I also I allow her to do whatever she wants to do. I don't make a fuss about mess or anything like that. I'm probably the one to, encourage her. Like today, for example, like not too long ago, because we're doing some work in the backyard, she wants to play in the water and the dirt and whatever. So I just allow her to do it. I feel like it. It's just she loves to explore, and so I just want to be the person to encourage that. Yeah.
Nice. I love that. So I'm curious, how are you managing everything? Working full time, having a really young daughter, solo parenting. Like, how has that been for you?
Yeah, I'm not managing everything at all. That's one. I'm not. I'm not managing everything at all. But I think I'm learning as I go. I think what makes it easier for me is the fact that when I became pregnant and when I chose to have a child, my mindset shifted in a way, right? So I know that, okay, then, I mean, I don't know everything that comes with motherhood, obviously, But like, you know, as you go, you learn. But because of my mindset, I was prepared to deal with everything that comes with motherhood, as opposed to the solo parenting part of it. You know, I wasn't really prepared for that. And I just want to kind of touch on solo parenting. It's in between solo and single parenting. I not to over this probably gonna so this probably will sound, you know, not away or not too good, but I don't get support as much from her father. He will, you know, pop in here and there whenever, and he, you know, there's no like checking up in between or anything like that. No, why I decided to become a single mother is because, one, for my mental health and my emotional health. It was the hardest thing to do because, you know, you want to raise a child in a nuclear family setup. You know, you don't want to raise a child without both parents. And so what I found is that, you know, because she stays with me most of the times, I would have to be the one that is, you know, doing most of it, taking care of her. I just have to ensure that I'm in a proper, you know, just I have to be well overall. And so when I came to that conclusion, or decision rather, it was very, very difficult for me mentally, emotionally. I was not happy. I wasn't eating for a little bit, and it was something that I tried to explain to my partner at the time, my ex, but it was as if, you know, there was no compassion or empathy too much. And I think I just kind of made the decision mentally or subconsciously when I went into the delivery room alone, right? So, yeah, I mean, it's not easy, and I don't imagine it as well to be easy on the father, because I know sometimes some parents, there's just some men who, I guess because of how they grew up with trauma and this and that and whatever, still have some time to discover themselves. I understand maybe, you know, where he's coming from, or where just generally as well with when it comes to, you know, relationships and just people who you're interacting with. Sometimes they may go through, you know, different traumas and they have just some healing to do, but there's just something that you cannot be a part of, because it's detrimental for your health. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I became a single parent.
Yeah, like I feel as if your decision to have your daughter, right, in your circumstance, like it took so much bravery and courageousness, knowing that, you know, the father of your child wasn't necessarily going to be there, or, you know, like you were saying, like it wasn't going to be like a nuclear family setup. And I loved how you touched upon how your ex, or your partner at the time, you know, he was going through his own things as well, and things that he may even still need to heal from his childhood and the way that he was raised and how he grew up. And I think that's very mature of you to actually recognize, because a lot of the times, you know, as single moms, it's easy to like hate on our partner, or, you know, the father of our children, because they're not there, but they're also going through their own, you know, mental, you know, battle and healing and journey as well in becoming a father, just as much as we're becoming a mother. So I think that's so mature of you to recognize, right? And I think like sometimes we forget about that because we get so stuck in our own bubble and what we're going through, that we forget that, you know, the father is also going through their own journey as well.
Oh yeah, for sure. Oh yeah, for sure. And thank you so much for acknowledging that. I mean, I don't know if it's just like a culture thing a lot of the times when it comes to like, our men really, even when men have that, because for me, he's a very feisty person. Like, I'm very feisty, I'm very assertive, I can be aggressive at times if persons, you know, like get me to that point. But I'm gonna be soft and sweet in the beginning. I'm an extremely understanding person. However, when that vulnerability is, you know, oh my god, is this working?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, we're good. Okay, when that vulnerability is abused, or, you know, not acknowledged, I mean, there's just so much more a person can take and no more. You know what I mean? So even though you're understanding about what that person is going through, you're still entitled to feel how you feel and still make the decision. Especially if after the understanding there comes no action of improvement, then that's when you need to, all right, I need to go about my business. I need to mind my accent. I need to go about my business because this is just like the best thing for me to do for me and my daughter. And the thing is as well too, I feel like as mothers we automatically sometimes experience this massive growth, mentally, emotionally, when we have a child. And sometimes it takes a while for the next parent to catch on, the father to catch on when it comes to that, especially if they're not the ones being the primary caretaker. And what I think about that is because they're not understand. No, they're not understand. But no, them not get it. But you're still, you can just feel what you want to feel, and you don't want. Sometimes you don't want as well. You don't want it to be a case where your child is growing up in an environment that's that's tense and full of like mental and emotional abuse, and you don't want to set that precedence for how she should be treated. You know what I mean? So yeah.
Yeah, that's so
Yes,
important,
baby.
right? Like, we just want to make sure that our child is growing up in the most loving and caring environment.
Yeah. Come this way, baby.
Are you okay over there? Do you need a moment?
Oh yeah, we're good. I think he just wants to see what's happening.
Okay, so I know earlier you had mentioned like it was really tough for you in the beginning. Like there were even a few days you weren't eating. Like mentally, it was just so heavy for you to deal with. I'm curious for you to share like more about like the biggest challenges you faced in becoming a single mom.
I think one of the biggest challenges is definitely finances. Finances is one, and I think so. There are two major things. Can I share the two major things?
Yeah.
So two major things: the finances and taking on that emotional burden of your child. It's kind of crazy. So let me just start with the finances first, because baby expensive. Babies know, me, babies require things, right? So I think what was really hard for me was to not really manage my finances, but just a matter of wanting to get more, because I'm not like frivolous with money, and I manage my finances very well, but you're gonna need more because you just have to prepare for whatever you need to prepare for. And so stepping outside my comfort zone to get side jobs and hustle and all of those things was a little bit difficult for me, because like for example, like right now I wake up like almost every night to do like my extra work, or to work on my business. Yes, baby, to work on my business. So I can't multitask. I can't multitask. Yeah. But the next thing is managing the emotional burden like of my child. And I say, right, I mean, so and maybe she'll be fine, you know what I mean? But it's like once guys. All right, yeah. So sometimes they'll be fine, but because they're growing up in a home where they don't have their father, it's like you wonder if they'll be okay. Will she grow up with like abandonment issues? Will she grow up with like abandonment issues? How will she feel towards me when she grows up? How will she feel towards her father? Will she have, just like things like that. Like I don't want her to grow up having to go to therapy like I did. You know what I mean? Because of like trauma. So I think that's one of the most difficult things. I'm kind of still going through that, but also just kind of being the best I can be for her. And I mean, I grew up in a single parent home as well too, but with my father. So it was difficult for me in terms of socialization and just kind of, you know, a little bit traumatic as well, too, just because of the dynamic of it. He was a very good father in his own way, because, you know, parents sometimes parent in the best way possible. It's kind of crazy, but at the same time, you know, you suffer mentally and emotionally from just like certain things. So that's my main concern of like her growing up in like a single parent home. But at the same time, you know, I try to give her as much support as possible. Um, Whenever I'm close in proximity to her father as well too, I will call and I will, you know, hey, we're in the vicinity, you know, come check in, whatever, whatever. I'm like that mom. I will be like, even though there is, you know, you know, I'll still be like, hey, this is happening. Are you interested in like coming? So I'm not a vindictive person, you know. So like, yeah, that's.
Yeah, I think I completely relate to what you're saying in terms of taking on the emotional burden of your child, because I think for me that was one of my biggest fears as well, right? Like thinking like, oh my gosh, are my children going to feel unworthy or unloved because their dad is not present? And that just really gave me a lot of worry, a lot of anxiety about the future, about their development. And now that they've slowly gotten a little bit older, now they're 7 and 9, like I've come to realize, like, you know, it's not as bad as I thought it would be, right? Like they are starting to ask questions. They do see, you know, other kids, you know, with both a mom and dad, they see their cousins who have both of their parents present. But because they have grown up with me being their primary caretaker, like this is their normal, right? And they know, like, you know, that they're still supported, that they're still loved. And similar to you, like, you know, I'm not a vindictive person where I cut their dad out of their life completely. If he wants to come visit, if he wants to, you know, have a call with them, like, I welcome that. I'm not like, no, you can't talk to them, right? Because I would never want to be that person that prevents them from having a relationship with their dad, right? And I think that later, as they grow up, it'll be up to them to decide what kind of relationship they want to have with their father. Yeah, so I completely relate to what you're saying in terms of taking on that emotional burden of our children and wondering, you know, are they going to be okay without their dad?
So how are they? How are they doing? If you know, like, I know it's like you're asking all the questions, but
yeah,
how are they doing? Like,
yeah. Well, like I mentioned, they're 7 and 9 now, right? And I have always been the primary caregiver. Like, they never really lived with their dad. Their dad actually lives in another country. He comes and visits maybe once a year, usually for like a month or two. And when he's here, like, they're super happy and they have such a great time with him. But then they know, like, when he leaves, you know, it's back to the normal routine where it's just, you know, with their mom. And because that's what they know and that's how they've grown up, like, that's their normal. So it's not like, oh, why is he leaving us? It's just, oh, okay, it's time for him to leave.
I think that's the hardest part for me, because when they do interact, they get so happy and excited and everything like that. Because I don't know how she knows, but she knows that, you know, he's her father. But I just wonder, like, because she's not able to communicate properly yet, I just wonder, like, how she's feeling, you know, like, is she sad? Like, you know, like, how are you feeling? What are you feeling? Like, are you sad? Are you angry? Are you, like, wondering where this person, you know, just, that's my biggest thing. Like, what are you thinking about? So I'm excited to get to that phase, just kind of figure out and have a conversation with her to see, like, you know, what she feels and stuff.
Yeah, and I think it's also just about, like, trusting ourselves in knowing that we'll have the right words and we'll have, you know, the right answer for them when they do start asking those questions and we do start having those conversations. And I think in the beginning, that was what was providing me a lot of anxiety and worry, because I was like, what am I going to say, right? That doesn't make them feel bad, right? Or doesn't make them feel unloved or unworthy, right? And then I just found that, you know, naturally, as they have those questions and I answer them without, you know, overthinking it or thinking, okay, I already practiced what I was going to say, like, just trusting myself that I have the right answer for them at the right time. Like, I think that just helps with the situation, just having that trust within ourselves.
Yeah, and you know what I think as well too, Melissa? I think when they, I mean, I'm not like a parent like, with children your ages, but I, I think that just interacting with children, I find that they ask questions at a time when they're ready to hear or when they're ready to know the answer sometimes. So I think that gives me comfort in explaining certain things to them because it means that, you know, they're thinking about it at that age and they're interested to know. So yeah, it gives me less anxiety. But
Yeah, and I think it ties exactly into your parenting style in terms of how you're mentioning, like, you allow your daughter to explore and to make a mess, right? And get into whatever she wants to get into. And it's just, you know, tying it into what we're saying. It's like they will ask those questions when they're curious and when they want to know and when they're ready for the answer.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think so too. Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to know, what advice would you give your, I guess, your former self when you were going through, you know, the toughest time or the lowest point in time as, you know, a single mom in the beginning? Like, what advice would you give to her after, you know, having lived with your daughter? She's almost 2 now. And all the lessons and, you know, things that you have learned in becoming a mother. What advice would you give to, I guess, a younger version of yourself when you were just, you know, filled with worry and anxiety and fear? What advice would you give to her?
1 second. One
Yeah.
second. Let me try this. All right. Right. Advice to my younger self, right?
Yes.
I think that would be to give myself grace and to be more present in how I feel, even though it really, 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 really hurts. So I say be present in how I feel because I realized that I was masking a lot of the emotions under aggression and under just I always go into my little world of just like being silent, I want to talk to anybody. Everything irritates me, just different things like that. And I feel like I would have just gone through like the emotions even though it hurts, you know. So and be patient with myself. I know that that's only a part of this specific journey in terms of I guess just motherhood or even just me as an individual because I was also in a relationship. Um, so so yeah, and the thing about it as well too, even though there's a lot of times which I'm sure you can relate to, Melissa, is that a lot of the times we feel like we're so alone. But truth is, I mean, we're alone, but we're not really alone because there's a community, for example, like you know what I mean? I think what you're doing is really good, by the way. Like, this is a really dope platform. I think it's just like really amazing. And before, I didn't even want to, I thought there was like a lot of shame as well, too, I was going through because you go through shame with being a single parent. And the women get it a lot because they're like, why would you go have a baby for this guy if you know, say, I'm gonna let you and them something there. And it's never like, wow, you know, she must have really gone through something to be able to make this decision because nobody wants to be a single parent, you know. And there are lots of times when like man just love pretend some of the time then, right? Oh yes, right. A friend of mine, Choir, he always tells me that we're never alone. And that was a really, really great reminder for me. Yeah, so that was a great reminder for me. So I'm never, even though you feel alone, you're never really alone because there's somebody sometimes willing to listen, willing to, you know, hear you out and offer advice. But really, but yeah, be patient with myself, give myself grace, and be patient, and to know that there's always a light at the end of the tunnel type of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's such beautiful, I guess, yeah, advice, right? Because, it's so easy to be angry with ourselves without really realizing it, like thinking that we've made these grave mistakes and carrying that guilt and that shame and not really talking about it. And like you were saying, like kind of like masking it. And so I think it's so important to give ourselves that grace and that compassion, realizing like we are not, our mistakes, right? And,
Yeah.
everyone makes mistakes. And it just because we're a single mom, it doesn't mean that we're less than or unworthy of love or, whatever, right? And so I think that compassion is really, really key. And I love how you also spoke about how it's important to feel our emotions, right? And like you said, it's really tough to go there because who wants to feel that sadness, that anger, that bitterness, that resentment, right? But it's so important for us to recognize that we're even feeling that way so that we could move past those emotions instead of just trying to bury them deep down and keep busy and keep going on. And it's so important to be able to identify those emotions so that we can release them and actually move on from them and learn from them as well. So I love how you mentioned that because a lot of the times it's just so easy for us to busy ourselves with a million and one things, right? And oh, I have to do this and I have to do that. And okay, I gotta, do this for, my kid and all that. Not really recognizing how we feel inside. And you were mentioning earlier how, you had this aggression, right? Because you weren't handling those emotions. So
Yeah.
I loved how you share that and how you were vulnerable enough to even share like it was turned into this aggression, right? That you actually didn't want to have, but it was just because you weren't dealing with what you needed to deal with.
Oh yeah, for sure. I'm just now coming out of like that aggression because you know um it takes a while. It takes a while to, when you identify the emotions, it does take a while for you to release them. um and it's almost as if when you identify the emotions, it amplifies it more, right? And when I realized that, I started to really be hard on myself and always be like, why you be aggressive about that, or why you behave so towards that and stuff. And but what I did was to, I really I really put focus on my behavior and my reactions. So I try to just pause before I answer, or pause before, somebody says something to me when we don't want to hear, or just different things like that. And things one of the things as well I noticed, Melissa, is wanting, I don't know if this is uh, an effect of stress, but you just kind of want to control everything, right? Yes. You want to control, everything. But yeah, man, it's important to identify and then release, but also spend time to, when you identify the emotions, to try to work through it and figure out the different triggers. I think that's what's important, and to manage the triggers.
Yeah, definitely. I love how you brought that up. And I think it's like we were talking about how it's so difficult to, identify those emotions because a lot of the times when it's like, quote unquote, a negative emotion like sadness or anger, it's like, well, we don't want to feel those things, right? Like there's
Yeah, yeah,
almost like the shame or guilt and like, oh no, but I shouldn't be sad. Like I shouldn't be angry. I don't want to be bitter, right?
yeah.
So there's this shame and guilt that comes with even just allowing ourselves to identify those emotions that don't, seem so positive. But it's okay. It's okay. We're human and we're allowed to feel sad. We're allowed to feel angry. But like you're saying, it's so important to be able to work through those emotions and not get stuck in them, which I think is so easy to do as well. Get stuck in those emotions and just feel super sad and super depressed and overwhelmed with all of these quote unquote negative emotions. All right. So I love this conversation that we're having. I feel like the insights that you're sharing are really deep and profound, and nothing that I think any of the other single moms that I've interviewed have shared before. So I really just love your insight and your vulnerability. And I guess just to wrap up our live today, I'm curious, as a solo parenting mother of a young child who works full time, how do you take care of yourself?
Oh God. I think the basics right now, which is trying to eat 3 to 6 times a day because I'm breastfeeding still, and self-care, like doing a nice face routine in the morning and evening. And I'm gonna try to start working out again, but just the basics for right now, which is just literally eating and just doing some face routine and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think sometimes it's actually the basics that we need to focus on, right? Like I think it's so easy like not to eat properly throughout the day or to skip a meal because we're just so busy. So I love how you're focusing on the basics and how it's something so simple, right? Even just like a simple, skincare routine in the morning. Like it's nothing, extravagant or super expensive. It's like something you could do at home, something that you could do for yourself daily, just to, take care of yourself, show yourself a little bit of, care and a little bit of love. So I love how it's something so simple that each of us can do, right? Making sure we're eating
Yeah.
healthy and properly throughout the day, which I think is something we tend to take for granted. And yeah, just like showing up for ourselves in a simple way, whether it's, taking care of our skin or putting on a little bit of makeup or, reading a little bit or a podcast, like whatever it is, it could be super simple and something we can show up and do every single day.
Yeah, I think so. I agree for sure.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Jamila, for hopping on here with me today and sharing everything that you shared with us. Do you have any last comments or questions or anything you wanted to add for our audience today?
Uh, I guess no, not really, but I think, well, just one thing is to be kind. I think it's important to be kind and be compassionate and have empathy towards one another. Because we never know what somebody is going through, and I learned that through being, I guess aggressive for a period, right? It's just to be kind and to be compassionate and be empathetic. And if you can help somebody or make somebody smile, that may just be their blessing, for the day or for even like a couple months. So to do that, yes. And for all the single moms out there, you're never alone. There's a community. You will find love again one day, even though that's not my thing right now. I'm not into the dating thing right now. But I mean, you're always worthy. Your child is worthy. And, you have a child. Like a child is a blessing. Like your child or your children is a blessing. So yeah, and take care of yourself. And I think that's it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think those are all such beautiful and powerful messages for everyone in the single mom community. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. All right.
Thank you for having me too.
Yes. I'm so happy that you decided to do this live with me.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. So we'll keep in touch. And yeah, enjoy the rest of your evening with your daughter.
All right. Thank you, Melissa.
All right. Bye, Jamila.
All right. Bye. How you end this? You just X?
Oh, I'll end it.
Okay. All right.